The Athletic recently just did a poll where they tried to figure out who the most overrated player in the NBA was. They asked 81 players to cast their votes, and about 13.6% of players said Rudy Gobert was the most overrated player in the NBA. Wait, the same Rudy Gobert that has won Defensive Player of the Year 3 times, probably going to be 4, judging by how the season has gone? Yeah, honestly, it's a pretty common theme. A lot of people think that Rudy Gobert is overrated. A lot of people have been blaming this man for his entire career. Rudy Gobert has been someone that for his entire career has been getting blamed for shit that's not even his fault. And I feel like a lot of people have not only misjudged this man, but they have just straight up lied about what Rudy Gobert can do. In 2021, the Utah Jazz were the #1 seed and they lost to the Los Angeles Clippers in the semifinals. A lot of people remember this series as being the breaking point in the Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell era in Utah. And I think that's fair to say. Utah had a great season, they should have done well, yet they got bounced out the second round. And the one person that I remember got a lot of blame for that was Rudy Gobert. A lot of people were blaming Gobert for being a center trying to guard a guard and not being able to defend well, when, let's be honest, that's a mismatch in just about any context. Another thing people were talking about was his offense. They were saying, oh, Rudy Gobert is not the best at offense. And yet about 2 years ago, we looked at some examples and we saw that Gobert was just not getting past the ball despite there being multiple chances for him to score. Now, you could chalk that up to bad turmoil, bad coaching, bad point guard by Donovan Mitchell. I know he's not a point guard. You get what I'm trying to say though. Regardless of all that, I thought we left that all in 2022. I thought we all thought that was just a bad series. That was a bad year for the Jazz. But then the following year, the Rudy Gobert to Minnesota trade happened, and this was one of the biggest, most controversial trades I've seen in a long time. The Minnesota Timberwolves would trade 5 players, including guys like Malik Beasley and Walker Kessler, and 5 first-round picks. The Utah Jazz would only have to send Rudy Gobert. Now, obviously, this is a very big package of players and picks to send just for one person, especially someone who's on a very big contract and someone who is technically up there in age. But there is a reason why Rudy Gobert is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year winner. There's also a reason why 2 years later, it seems like this trade is aging perfectly, because one team is in the playoffs right now fighting to make it to the finals, and the other didn't even make the playoffs or the play-in. They're literally one of the worst teams in the league. I find it so funny that it took people 1 year to judge a trade when we all know that never goes well. I mean, you have motherfuckers saying this was the worst trade in NBA history. Oh my God, Minnesota's so bad. Yet again, look at Minnesota and what they've done this year. I mean, for the entire season, they've been what, the #1 defense in the league? And you want to know one of the main reasons why they've been the #1 defense in the league? Well, this guy named Rudy Gobert. I mean, honestly, trading some role players and some picks for a Defensive Player of the Year winner like Rudy Gobert is not the worst thing you could have done. However, I do think the reason why a lot of people hated on this trade was, one, because again, it was a big package of players and picks, but also because it's Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert, for some reason, has this weird narrative around his name that a lot of people don't truly understand. To start the NBA playoffs, the Minnesota Timberwolves were set to face the Phoenix Suns. The Timberwolves were the 3 seed, the Suns were the 6. Yet a lot of people were very conflicted on this series. Now, for the most part, it's obvious that the 3 seed is going to beat the 6 seed, especially in this context. Sure, Phoenix is a good team, but they have their own issues. Meanwhile, Minnesota has been consistent for the entire year and has showed little to no issues whatsoever. But something that people were saying is, oh, Rudy Gobert, you can't play him in the playoffs. He's unplayable. I mean, after game 1, people are now saying, oh wait, how are the Suns gonna figure him out? Well, what are they gonna do? Wait a minute. I thought you guys said he was unplayable. I thought you guys said that players were just gonna coast by and score in the mid-range and he was gonna be a liability. However, we're now seeing that is not true at all. People have said that Gobert, he can't deal with mismatches and he cannot guard from the 3-point line. However, Chris Finch has been very aggressive this year with Gobert and has shown that he in fact can guard from 3. So that narrative is completely fucking gone. There was people saying that Gobert was gonna struggle against the Suns' big 3, yet one player that really struggled in game 1 was Devin Booker. And Booker struggling was no accident. This just wasn't Booker having a bad game. If you understand what Minnesota's strategy was for not just this game, but the entire series, you would understand why this happened. So let's just look at the big 3 stats from game 1. Kevin Durant points, 31 points, 65% from the field. What a great start. Devin Booker, 18 points, 31% from the field. Well, that's not normal. And Bradley Beal, 15 points, 60% from the field. So can you see what's going on? Kevin Durant is obviously going to score. We expect this to happen. And Minnesota, that's what they also expect. Minnesota knows Kevin Durant could score 50 in every single game of the series. That is not going to decide the series whatsoever. However, Kevin Durant averaging like 35 and Booker averaging 30 and Beal averaging 20 to 25, that will decide the series in Phoenix's favor. So Minnesota's plan was to let Kevin Durant score but neutralize one of the players from the big 3. And which one are you going to neutralize? Well, your choices are Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal, you could argue, didn't necessarily have a bad game. He just wasn't aggressive. But even even then, I don't think that's the guy you want to neutralize. Someone who can do great in the playoffs when he is hot. Last year, he had one of the best playoff runs I've seen in a long time, but unfortunately got cut short, not only due to injury, but the fact that the Nuggets won. Not to mention, for a majority of the season, he's been Phoenix's primary ball handler. So if you can shut down the guy that is not only responsible for running the offense, but at times can be a #1 option for this team, you're gonna be golden. And I want to point out the fact that this entire game plan would not work if Chris Finch did not trust Rudy Gobert, which he clearly does. I do feel like that this Minnesota team versus the Utah team that Gobert was previously on are very much different. I mean, this Minnesota team has so many weapons, so Gobert isn't the only good defender on the court. I mean, this man doesn't have to rely on just himself on the defensive side. They have other guys on defense. They really don't have a weak link necessarily on their starting lineup. So Gobert can focus on the main assignment, and so far it is shown to do wonders for this team. Not only in just game 1 of the playoffs, but the entire regular season. Motherfuckers will lie to you about Rudy Gobert. They'll say he's unplayable in the playoffs. They'll say he can't do this, he can't do that. On the offensive side, he's a cone. But the fact of the matter is, Rudy Gobert is one of the most impactful players in the league, and he needs to start getting his damn respect. I think it is very likely that Minnesota is going to go very far in the playoffs, but I am curious, if Minnesota does lose early, let's say in the 2nd or even 3rd round, is the national media going to say this couldn't have possibly been Anthony Edwards' fault, this could have been this guy's fault or that guy's fault, it was clearly Rudy Gobert, let's blame it on him. Yet for Gobert's entire career, he's been blamed for bad teammates and bad coaching and overall just bad situations. Yet now that Gobert is finally in a great situation, we're starting to see how truly impactful this man is. So the moral of the story, do not let the national media, do not let Twitter casuals fool you. Rudy Gobert is a great fucking player, and he's one of the reasons why Minnesota is where they're at right now. I mean, how are people going to say, oh, he's overhyped, he's overrated, when there is clear point blank evidence showing that people are scared of Gobert in the paint? Which, not to say that's not fair, because I'd feel the exact same way. I mean, you are basically risking getting your shit swatted by Gobert if you even try to drive in the paint, no matter who you are. I mean, that's probably the main reason why those players said that Rudy Gobert was overrated. Not because they actually feel that way, probably because they just hate this motherfucker. And while you might hate Rudy Gobert, it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, this man is about to win his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award, and he's going to go down as one of the greatest defenders of all time. Oh, and also this video is going live the same day as game 2, so Gobert, I swear to God, you better not let me down. Because if you do, then J. Vas Casser de la Goule Patine de Patin, I did not say